And we're live. UFC off week. Obviously, we had a little bit of a busy schedule last weekend with PFL, UFC. I think we even had an LFA, but nothing really this week. There is Octagon, which, I might skim through for my Patreon folks. I won't really do anything on YouTube for that. I just wanted to do the live here for you guys as always on Tuesdays. Apologies for any of you guys that I missed on Saturday for the Fight Day live chat. Was out of town visiting in-laws and stuff, so timing really didn't work out. I got home while the fights were going on, so I didn't really want to go live for that. Eventually caught up on the fights, fucking killed it on the fights. PFL I did pretty well as too, except the Messiah fight. I was heavily invested on the under 2.5 in the Messiah fight. Had him in a parlay as well, and apparently he shit the bed. I didn't even get to watch the fight yet. I have no idea what it looked like. So, maybe with this off week, I might eventually go back and watch that fight and see where we went wrong. I keep fading Kuro Magomedov, but he keeps shutting me up. So apparently he's retiring now. So that's something else to kind of consider, that we won't get the opportunity to fade him or even play him moving forward anymore. So, we killed LFA, hit a bunch of underdogs. A bunch of underdogs won on that card, but we were able to hit a few there, so I was happy about that. And then UFC, we pretty much killed. I think the only things I really got wrong there was the Shigula under 2.5. I forgot what the other spot was as well, but I think I only missed on 2 spots. Barrio, I missed on. That was a half unit shot. I think he won the second round, right? And then I was very surprised that he was the first one to slow down in that third round. That one was quite surprising. I really didn't think, if it were to go to the third round, that Oleg Shayjuk would have won that round on the scorecards, but that's what it ended up being. I think Oleg Shayjuk just landed more body shots, especially to start off that fight, and it seemed to zap the gas tank of Barrio quicker than I expected it to. So we ended up losing on the Barrio fight, but Bautista lock of the night play we hit, Kuniev dog of the night play we hit, Jakub Vikwac ends up getting the last second submission, but apparently even if he didn't get the submission, he won on all 3 scorecards. 2 judges gave him the first 2 rounds, and then 1 judge gave him the second and third round. So we would have got that win regardless. But it was so sweet to call that fight almost to a T, right? I all week I was just saying that Gafrov is going to shoot himself into a bad takedown attempt, and Vikwac is going to jump on his neck and get it. We saw some good defense from Gafrov early, which kind of hindered my confidence as that fight continued to go on. But then that last second spot there, very happy to have ended up hitting that. So very happy about that. So decent UFC showing, kind of stumbled out of the gate in January, but we're getting things back in line here. So I'm very happy about that. But yeah, very happy to just get back and talk to you guys as well. I know we got some of the regulars in here already. For the newer viewers, I'd kind of like to just yap my ass off for the first 5 or 6 minutes just to get some comments flowing in, and then I can start responding to you guys. But yeah, really chilling this week. I'm focusing on updating the fight archive as much as I can this week. Tonight, I'm going to run through a bunch of fighter updates. Tomorrow, that's kind of my plan. And then Thursday, I'm going to start looking into the next UFC card and get that out, written breakdowns for the Patreon folks, but then make sure I have my studying done so I can drop the breakdown for you guys on Monday on YouTube as usual. Again, there is Octagon this weekend as well, which I'll kind of glance at. I don't want to spend too much time on it. I want to focus more so on just chilling and updating the fight archive as much as possible. But next week, we got the big Cage Warriors 200 event, which is headlined by, I think, a light heavyweight title fight or middleweight title fight between Dario Belandi and Patty McCrory. So I'll be breaking down that card and then dropping a Legacy Warriors podcast to talk about that. And then we obviously have the UFC Houston card between Fluffy and Strickland, which I'm sure you guys already have a few questions about, but I'll definitely get into that in a second. So happy to get back into the swing and things, and but also happy to have this week off to just chill and catch my breath. Cheers to anybody enjoying a Tuesday late night beverage. On my wine tip tonight, got some Spanish red wine. I don't even know what the fuck it is, but I'm slowly getting more into wine. I don't know. things are getting a little bit classier over here, if that's what you want to call it. But yeah, thought I'd have a little bit of a drink while we're chatting it up and yucking it up with the boys. Cheers. All right, let's get through the comments now. Appreciate everybody stopping by already. Nice and early. I'm sticking around for at least an hour, so plenty of time to chop it up. All right, my guy, SWAT MMA saying people are looking at that Rome fight and slamming Fluffy like Rome is some amazing fighter. I don't understand what you mean by Rome fight. I'm assuming you mean Fluffy and Strickland. I don't know if Rome is a nickname for Strickland. Yes, exactly. Pinky up. Pinky up, guys. You already know how it is. But yeah, Fluffy should absolutely win that fight, right? Let's check out what the odds actually are. Grimy saying if Fluffy can't get Strickland down, it's going to be a long night for him. Yeah, I think the thing that Fluffy will benefit from is the fact that Strickland's not much of a finisher, or at least, you know, he might be able to muster up a barrage of shots and try to get Fluffy out of there that way. But I think he's going to struggle to get Fluffy off of his back specifically. Yeah, you got Fluffy at minus 280, Strickland at plus 240. I can understand the love on Hernandez. Absolutely. Strickland's not a big power puncher, and that's kind of been the issue with him in the past. His body has also been susceptible. If you guys remember, Marcus Perez hurt him to the body and then choked him out. Kevin Holland, I think, hit him to the body and finished him. So I don't think Strickland has that type of pop to really give him issues there. But yeah, I like Fluffy there. Would I parlay him at minus 280? That's TBD, but I got to get into the breakdown for that. Oh, people are looking at the Roman Dolidze fight and slamming Fluffy like Roman is an amazing fighter. Got it. Now I understand what you mean there. Yeah, Roman was overhyped, right? We already know that. But I think people are just impressed with the style in which Fluffy fights, and that's why they're slamming him. I don't think it's specifically because of the Dolidze fight. You can, look at the Michel Pereira fight. You can look at the Rodolfo Vieira fight. You can look at the Roman Kopylov fight. He's done it consistently and been very successful with it. So I don't think it's a bad thing that people are hype on Fluffy, because I think he deserves it. It's all about, is his durability intact after the first couple losses that he suffered in the UFC. Plus 240 for Strickland is insane. I get it. Former champion, has a good cardio, has the striking advantage here. I just don't know if he can get away from the constant chain wrestling of Fluffy. Grammy saying BKFC should have had their event this weekend instead of last. Yeah, that's a good point. I don't follow BKFC all that much, but I know it was like Knuckle Mania for them or whatever. But yeah, with nothing this weekend, this would have been a perfect time, especially for PFL. I know PFL didn't collide with the UFC in terms of the timing, but still, with an off weekend, that is an opportunity for a regional promotion or a B-list promotion to try to capitalize on a UFC off week. Grimey saying Musayev was such a letdown. Same with Pinedo. Yeah, I got to watch the Musayev fight. I did watch the Pinedo fight because I did bet Isbulayev at even odds. It was so funny, by the way. There's some guy that commented on my PFL breakdown and said, I'm not counting the Khabulaev fight because of the steroid usage or whatever, right? And it's funny because I was with my niece this this weekend, and I was playing NHL with her. She has a big fascination with hockey now. We took her to a Leafs game and all that type of stuff. She loves hockey, so we're playing NHL, and she has this thing that she got with her dad where they're like, oh, we played through they play 3-minute periods, super easy, so it's easy for her to score and stuff. But they have this thing where it's like, if you get no whistles, that means like no offsides, no icing, none of that, no penalties, anything like that. She gets excited that there was no whistles in a game. And there was an icing call, and she goes, that doesn't count. And we're like, of course it counts. It's a whistle. She goes, no, it doesn't count. It doesn't count. So when somebody left a comment on my PFL video saying that the Khabulaev fight doesn't count, it kind of reminded me of her and how how much of a childlike thinking that is, right? Sure, he tested positive for steroids, but you still cannot overlook how he got dominated in the grappling realm, whether it was against somebody on steroids or not. It's a clear issue in his game that you need to consider. And he was fighting a guy that was going to take advantage of it. And we saw what happened. He finished him even faster than a guy on steroids did. So as soon as I saw that comment and after having that interaction with my niece, I was just like, that is hilarious that it lined up the way that it did. But yeah, Pinedo, great striker, but he can't deal with that Russian level of wrestling. Bubba Jenkins struggled to get him down and hold him down. And he got torched up. Braga tried doing the same thing, got torched up. Logney, not much of a grappler. We saw him get torched up on the feet, but Haibulaev was not going to strike with him, right? He was going to take him down. Same thing with Isbulaev. Wasn't going to strike with him, took him down. So, yeah. SWAT saying made 8 units off Saturday's card. Good shit, my guy. Very, very good shit. My guy McNasty, appreciate you stopping by. Musayev ring rust seemed like maybe, but Kuramagomedov was coming off just as long of a layoff, if not more. So I don't know what with Kuramagomedov possibly retiring, why not do Musayev versus Thad Jean for the vacant title? SWAT MMA saying MMA just grew a chin of granite that fight. Yeah, that's. I know I got shit on for that MAB live, like during my best bet segment, I put him as a live dog, and some people were shitting me on about that. But I'm like, if his chin shows up, like he can make this competitive, and he did, right? It was 1-1 going into that final round. That's why you can't 100% of the time bank on a guy who has sketchy durability at times to have sketchy durability when he steps into the ring. Because if he doesn't, is the guy that's minus 500 going to look minus 500? Maybe, maybe not. So some people got bailed out, obviously, by taking that Oleg Shayjuk chin. But again, like pre-fight, I'm sure if you asked anybody, they would say MAB would have the better second and third rounds. But it didn't play out that way. Grammy saying, who do you think is next for Bautista Sandhagen? I love the Sandhagen rematch, right? Sandhagen's kind of in a little bit of a weird area. He's kind of in a position where he's like, he fought for the title recently, came up short against the guy that probably next going to fight for the title, right? In Nurmagomedov. I'm sure I'm missing somebody off the top of my head, but he's kind of in a position of trying to make a name for himself again. And I think Bautista is in that spot where he's trying to reclaim some love amongst the fans. So I wouldn't mind Bautista Sandhagen, right? I think Bautista's debut was on short notice against Sandhagen. So it's kind of like the whole Sarukian and Makachev thing, right? Sarukian comes in, first fight against Islam Makachev, but it's been so long between the fights that there is more than enough time and experience and improvements that these guys have made, both of them, that it would be amazing to see them fight each other. Fight night, main event, I could see it at the Apex. Absolutely makes sense. And I'd love to see that be the next one up. Yes, just coming across the pinky up comments, and I got to do it again. I feel like my mic audio was kind of clipping a little bit there, so I apologize. Delidze, yes. McNasty saying Musayev threw an illegal knee as he was about to finish him, ruined the fight. So he was actually close to finishing him. Damn. I know he got a point taken off. I didn't know it was because he was close to actually finishing him. I believe the scorecards read that Musayev won rounds 4 and 5. So like I kind of guessed, Kuramagomedov's cardio was going to start to fall off just like it did in the Jason Jackson fight and as it has in past fights. But yeah, that sucks. I got to watch that for sure. Jake saying it's a holiday, let people rest. I get it. I get it. There's always going to be degenerates out there that want to watch some fights and have some entertainment like that. There is Octagon, right? Octagon is a very solid promotion, one that's definitely worth a watch if you're a hardcore enough MMA fan. Decent card this weekend as well. Kike Brito going up again. Kike Brito from formerly of the Contender series. I can't recall who he came up short against. I think he lost to Oban Elliott on the Contender series, but he's a Octagon champion fighting Ronald Paradiser, who's a very solid high-level fighter as well. So that's a decent fight there. Grammy Singh, are you in Toronto? No, I am not in Toronto. Used to be. From Toronto. But yes, not there currently. McNasty saying Lebosniani is a lock next week. Ooh, who's he fighting? Phil Rowe? Yeah, I'm not a big Phil Rowe guy. Gotta believe that Jean Paul is only minus 185. I'd expect him to take some chalk or some steam during fight week. But yeah, I'm not a big Phil Rowe guy. I think he's a bit of a quitter. If he can't dictate the range, I think he's kind of screwed, as he's shown in a lot of his fights. Excuse me. Before I get to this question from Dan the Man, quick. I don't want to look at the odds. I kind of like researching the fights and then looking at the odds, unless you guys specifically ask me about a specific fight. But like early leans, gotta be Hernandez over Strickland, Neal over Medic. Ige's tough, but Costa has been looking good too. I think Costa will probably beat Ige. I think D'Elia beats Spivak. Reese and Pereira is an interesting fight. That under's got to be probably chalk to shit, right? Let's see if they have an under out for that yet. Oh, they do. Wow, the under 1.5 for Pereira. Reese is only plus 105. That's intriguing. I feel like that's definitely going to hit. Njokuani versus Leao. Fun striking battle there. I probably lean Njokuani ever so slightly. Osborne versus Idris. Got to go with Idris, but he really laid an egg against Osborne. Or against Joseph Morales, who's obviously doing pretty well right now. Alden Korea versus Louis Gurul. I was so high on Gurul when he came into the UFC, but losing to Ode Osborne, losing to Jesus Aguilar, good lord, this guy fell off hard. He had a very good style with Fury FC, but it's not working out in the UFC. I think Korea probably boxes him up there. Nora Cornell versus Jocelyn Edwards. I think Edwards wins. Brahimai against Soriano. Gotta go with Brahimai, right? He's really streaking as of late. Lebosniani against Rowe. Gotta go Jean-Paul. Levitt versus Del Valle. Gotta go with Del Valle. Surprised Levitt still has a UFC roster spot. And then Juliana Miller versus Carly Judice. Love me some Judice there, but Miller could make things interesting in the grappling round. But I think Judice will showcase good enough striking or grappling defense. All right, my guy Dan the Man here saying, with LokDog moving up and Jailton moving down, how do you think they will do in their new divisions? LokDog moving up to, featherweight? That's a good division for him. Like, his style is very difficult to deal with, but if his cardio can improve, if his durability is already pretty freaking good, right? It's mainly his cardio, and if his cardio can benefit from him moving up, which I think it will, I think he can be even more dangerous at 145 pounds. It's the grappling. I think his defensive grappling will also improve because of his ability to keep a better gas tank. So that could definitely help him at 145 pounds. He might be able to do better at 45 than 35, especially if it was such a hard cut for him, and it is continuously being a hard cut for him. And for Almeida, I think he should have been at 205 this whole time. Like, I don't know if you guys remember when he first came into the UFC through the Contender Series. He fought on the Contender Series as a 205er, if I'm not mistaken. He had his first fight in the UFC as a 205er, but then had such a quick turnaround for his next fight that he took it on short notice up at heavyweight. And then he's like, nobody wants to fight me at 205. So I'd rather be able to have the opportunity to be more active and take on more challenges and take short notice fights if they present themselves. So I'm going to fight at heavyweight. And, it worked out for him a little bit. But as we've seen, he's starting to fight the top guys in the heavyweight division, the top 10 even, top 8, he starts to come up short. So, yeah, I like him moving down to 205. I think it's going to be easier for him to implement his grappling approach, but he needs to have a little bit more sense of push. He needs to have a little bit more sense of urgency as compared to what he's been showing in his last few fights. I think he showed more urgency against Volkov than he did with Kuniev, but I think he could actually get Kuniev to the ground. He could actually get Volkov to the ground. He was struggling to get Kuniev to the ground. And again, Kuniev has a dog in that fight. What the hell were people thinking? Taking Almeida at chalk. I don't know what anybody thought how people thought negatively of Kuniev after that Curtis Blades fight. Like, it's not like he looked horrible by any means. And we already know that Almeida is, a strength grappler. He's not like a finesse, a strength wrestler. He's not really much of a finesse wrestler, right? He's not chain in attempts together. He's trying to get that first takedown attempt, drag you to the cage, trying to get his hands locked onto you and trying to pull you to the ground. But that's not going to work against a guy like Kuniev, who is 25 pounds heavier than him, maybe 30 after Kuniev rehydrated a little bit. And then obviously coming from a Dagestani background, right? That one was surprising that people were confident on the Almeida side. McNasty saying open scoring for Octagon is clutch. Yeah, absolutely. I would beg people that are against open scoring to watch Octagon and see how it benefits the fighters, right? Although I will say this, there are instances where it feels like fighters are not looking at the open scoring, even though they have it available to them. Because there's been so many fights where the fight is clearly 2-0 going into the third round. And even if the losing fighter wins that third round, they're still trying to raise their hand as the decision is being read. Like they think the score is just going to fucking change and that hey, they might switch the scorecards around, or they just don't look at the scorecards, right? Makes no sense to me. If you have that information available to use it, that either means you have to go out there and get a finish or just do enough to not get finished. And then there's always that argument of people saying, hey, if there is somebody that's going to get, going to cruise, then it's on the other guy to go out there and try to make sure that the other guy doesn't cruise. So, yeah, I love open scoring in Octagon for sure. I would love if they tested it on the UFC, even just like a one-off. I think Denver allows open scoring. So I would love to see them go to Denver one time, or Colorado, I should say, and have just a freaking regular fight night. See how open scoring works. McNasty saying Carlos Leal also seems like a lock next week against Chitty. I don't know, man. We saw what happens when Leal kind of just rushes the pocket and doesn't respect the striking of his opponent, like Muslim Salikov, right? You'd kind of expect Njokuani to be able to just pitter-patter Leal from distance. You'd kind of expect him to just, not worry too much about Leal crashing the pocket, because he's going to be able to, hit him with the knee up the middle, hit him with the jab from distance. Excuse me. I don't know if he's a lock against Chitty. I'd almost consider Chitty as a dog. I know there are some question marks about Chitty's durability as well, but there's got to be questions about Leal's durability too. And I'd kind of lean with Chitty being a little bit cleaner of a striker. So something to think about there as well. But yeah, not a decent card, or not a bad card for the UFC's return. Back-to-back weekends, their fight nights are actually in front of a live crowd outside of the Apex. We got Houston, then we got Mexico, which has that crazy main event between Brandon Moreno and Lonnie Kavanaugh. Kavanaugh coming off a loss, his first pro loss, and the UFC is more than happy to throw him into a spot against Moreno. I know Charles Johnson is also coming off a loss, but I'd almost rather see Johnson go up against Moreno than Kavanaugh. We know Kavanaugh needs more experience. To go from fighting Charles Johnson and getting knocked out to taking a main event slot at altitude against a former multiple-time champion, I don't know. Not a good look. This could hurt him. This could hurt him bad. This could hurt him I don't know if you guys remember when Yair Rodriguez took on Frankie Edgar and got absolutely brutalized. Yeah. Will be interesting to see. I don't think Kavanaugh is going to be able to keep up with Moreno. The fight that I am interested in is Vera versus Martinez. I think Martinez is a solid prospect to keep an eye on. I don't know if something happened to the stream there. Seemed to just die out. There we go. McNasty saying should have been Horiguchi, not Kavanaugh. Yeah, fuck. Horiguchi would be amazing. I would love to see if they maybe decide to change it up. Do you think they would change it up this late? Like, that fight is 2 weeks away. Or, I guess, 3 weeks away. I feel like Horiguchi would take it, right? Like, he didn't take much damage against Albazi. He kind of just ran through Albazi. Yeah, Horiguchi would be the spot. Because that would put Horiguchi right where he wants to be in terms of getting a title shot. Right? Beat a former champion. And stylistically speaking, it's a much more intriguing fight than Kavanaugh. Should have replaced Horiguchi this past week and moved into that slot. Yeah, for sure. From what I read was that Horiguchi said he wanted to fight this past weekend and then take the spot against Moreno. So I don't know if that opportunity is still available to him, but that would be amazing. You know, Albazi gets you a top 5 contender spot. Beating Moreno gets you a title shot. So, you know, all indications are that Horiguchi is gonna, Van is gonna fight Kopp, and that still leaves Tatsuro Taira out there too, and then Pantoja, however long it's gonna take him to get back. I think Horiguchi broke his hand in the last. Oh yes, you're right. He did break his hand. I saw something about that afterwards as well, which kind of sucks, right? He was, he fought in November, fights at the beginning of February, like 3 months after, and he's trying to get it going. He's trying to stay active. He wants to, he wants to get a title shot before Father Time catches up to him. He's 35 years old, and we know at flyweight that's the beginning of the end. Did it look like the beginning of the end over his last 2 fights? Probably not. But you want to be at your best and peak and as close to your prime as possible when you're fighting at the highest level. And I'll be honest, Horiguchi versus Van, Horiguchi versus Pantoja, Horiguchi versus Kopp, I think he wins all those fights. I think Horiguchi is probably the best flyweight in the division right now, which is kind of crazy to think, right? But he's been looking so good as of late. If his durability holds up, and as long as he doesn't get clipped by anything crazy like what Sergio Pettis hit him with, he could win the title and maybe even defend it a few times. I don't think Pantoja can out-grapple him. I think Pantoja, like, he, on paper, sure, but, like, in terms of grinding minutes out, submitting him, I don't see that happening. I have Kopp beating Van and then Horiguchi taking it off Kopp. Never forget that Pettis spinning back fist in Bellator. Yeah. Dude, McNasty, I think we were talking when that happened, and we were kind of just so shocked as to how it transpired after Horiguchi was looking so good. But yeah, I don't know if Kopp and Van is going to end up happening, because I feel like we would have heard about it by now, because the targeted time frame was March 7th, right? UFC 326, Holloway Oliveira 2 co-main event. But, we're less than a month away from it now. I don't know if we're going to get it. Jibhead saying, I have Tyra taking it from Kopp. Nah, man. Kopp is so hard to out-grapple. Like, Mokaev was one thing, but even that fight didn't really take place in the grappling realm as much. That was like a tepid pace kickboxing matchup, if I remember correctly. And I think Kopp was kind of just scared of letting go because Mokaev's takedowns. But Tyra is more of a, needs to leap on your back kind of grappler. The other type of grappling that he normally does in terms of wrestling, I don't think that's going to work out with Kopp. Kopp is too athletic, too explosive, too strong, too fast. I think Kopp is a very bad stylistic matchup for Tyra. I think the best fight that you can make at flyweight right now, skill for skill, is Kopp against Horiguchi. Van versus Tyra would be interesting. I feel like that would be competitive. But I feel Kopp beats both those guys. I think Horiguchi beats both those guys. So, McNasty saying that Pantoja injury is the most bizarre thing of all time. Looked like he broke his arm in 5 places, but looks like he's recovering quick. Yeah, that was wild. The fact I still don't know whether he fractured anything or what it was, because I remember there was a lot of conflicting reports coming out after that fight completed. Let me see if I can figure out what the exact injury was. So as of January 5th, 2026, fans can expect to see Pantoja return to the octagon later this year after a nasty injury cost him his flyweight title at UFC 323. Fans were concerned in the immediate aftermath of 323. Ariel Helwani provided a huge update on the former champ's status. I can break this news. This is according to his team. Helwani said Pantoja will not need surgery. I've been told he will not need surgery. Just the tendons were affected. No fractures. Ligaments are intact. No surgery. Hoping that he will return maybe mid to third quarter of 2026. Okay. Yeah, because if he broke something, then that would have been a much longer, maybe end of 2026, but third quarter 2026, not too bad. And I'm assuming they would put him right into a title fight, right? So that's why you would have to have, if Van is going to try to defend one time before Pantoja is ready, that fight is going to have to happen by April. So, yeah. Jibhead saying they say he's doing pull-ups already. Wow. That's crazy. Yeah. That replay looked nasty. I remember watching it. I'm like, oh, his arm is fucked. And then he I guess he tapped right away. But yeah, that was bad. That was absolutely nasty. I'm trying to think of other injuries where a guy tried posting on his arm after getting tripped or taken down or something like that. I know there's been a few. I can't recall them off the top of my head, but we've seen some nasty ones. Obviously, we've seen some nasty leg injuries. Spider Silva, Chris Weidman, I think Uriah Hall, or was it Weidman who injured his leg against Uriah Hall? Even Ante D'Elia. If you guys went back and watched his fight against his first fight against Marcin Tybura, 10 plus years ago, I think it was the last fight Tybura had before coming to the UFC. Ante D'Elia had a similar Anderson Silva type injury where I think Tybura checked a leg kick and he just snapped his leg in half. And he was back, just over a year later. Absolute monster D'Elia is. I'm so bummed that he didn't get that win over Waldo Cortez Acosta because similar to Horiguchi, he's a guy that his clock is kind of ticking. Luckily, he has more time considering, heavyweights. But I would have loved to see him ride that momentum into, title contention. I feel like he's good enough to get there. But, yeah, obviously that setback against Cortez Acosta is going to hurt him a bit. But he's getting right back to work by taking on Spivak, which I think is a very favorable matchup for him. I think that's on the Houston card, right? Yeah, he's only minus 170. That's crazy. I honestly think he runs through Spivak. I think Spivak has shown if he doesn't have, if his opponent has a good enough grappling defense game, they're going to struggle, or he's going to struggle against them, or if he's less athletic than his opponent, like the Cyril Gane fight, he's going to struggle. I wouldn't say Ante D'Elia is more athletic than him, but I think he is a good enough grappler to kind of stifle that game from Spivak and then be the more aggressive striker, which is where Spivak often falls short. And I just saw D'Elia's minus 170. I think that's a steal of a line. Well, maybe not a steal of a line. That's kind of accurate, but I think still good enough value there on D'Elia. Yeah, some news. Obviously, I put in the title here of the video that we haven't really talked about yet. People have kind of just overlooked some of the stuff that I put in the title here. Let me just quickly make sure I'm getting it right. UFC off week. Usman Nurmagomedov in the UFC in 2027. It is absolutely possible. According to Ariel Helwani, this is the last year that Nurmagomedov is under contract with the PFL. And he doesn't have to fight again. They don't have to offer him another fight this year. He doesn't have to fight at all this year. He's already met his quota, I guess, in terms of fights, but in terms of time, he just has to wait till the end of 26 and he's a free agent. So you got to believe he's going to want to come over to the UFC. And I forgot where I saw a comment, but there's the perfect comment that somebody had on this situation. PFL's in a sticky situation. It would look bad if they let one of their more dominant champions jump on over to the UFC in their prime. But it would also be bad if they ponied up and paid him what he's assuming, assuming what he would want to get paid to stay in the PFL. He doesn't bring the numbers. That's the issue. He doesn't bring the numbers to justify offering him something. And that kind of ties PFL's hands to be like, we just invested so much money in this guy that does nothing for our business. Sure, for the hardcores, but it's not going to drive more fans to come to watch PFL because of Usman Nurmagomedov. There's no more intriguing matchups left for him in the PFL. We've done the Paul Hughes thing a few times. Sure, you could probably convince people that a third fight is necessary. There's a lot of people screaming robbery in the last matchup. But nobody's interested in that anymore. People want to see Usman in the UFC. And I think with Islam Makhachev moving up to welterweight, it opens up the lightweight division for another Nurmagomedov. So there's that chance there. So I'm sure the UFC will underpay Usman Nurmagomedov and then promise him to be like, hey, you become champion, you'll get more money. But if you want to fight in the UFC, this is the shit deal you're going to have to take. And, seeing everything that he's accomplished in PFL tour, I'm sure Usman will eventually take that money and just be like, all right, fuck it. I want to fight in the UFC. I want to be with my brother. I want to be with my cousins. UFC is the place to be. Nobody dreams of being the PFL champion. That's just always going to be the matter of the fact. McNasty saying UFC can easily make heavyweight great again, but seems like they refuse to. I'm assuming you are pointing towards Mr. Gable Steveson. I'm sure they'll sign him this year. If they don't sign him this year, that would kind of be a asinine in my opinion. But yeah, I even saw a quote from Schaub saying, heavyweight is kind of dead in the water right now, and it kind of makes sense, right? You got John Jones fucking dilly-dallying. You got Tom Aspinall, still recovering from the eye injury. I'm assuming Gane is going to wait until Aspinall is recovered, so that puts the division at a standstill. And then outside of those two, who else is there really to talk about? There are no other heavyweights other than Gable Steveson, who I still think needs more experience, right? Excuse me. McNasty saying Arman versus Usman. Yeah, that would be fun. I'd love to see that fight. I might favor Usman because I think Usman is a good enough striker. But I feel like cardio would be Arman. But yeah, that would be a fun fight. And the hilarious thing is that you're going Arman versus Usman. What about Usman versus the champion of the division, Topuria? But maybe Arman versus, by 2027, if Arman hasn't fought for the title or at least convinced the UFC that he deserves a title shot and should be fighting for the title early 2027, something's wrong. So, maybe Usman against another high-level lightweight. Maybe him against Gaethje after Gaethje gets knocked to shit by Topuria. But yeah, there are some fun fights for Usman in the UFC. And I think he's still young enough, right? I don't think he's 30, maybe 30 at most. How old is Usman? Oh, he's 27. What am I talking about? He's 28 in April. So if he, he'll be 28, turning 29 if he comes to the UFC in 2027. So clearly, in the depths of his prime and could only get better still. So yeah, I'd love to see him hop over to the UFC. McNasty saying they want Usman out so they can make Hughes champion. That wouldn't be bad. He's definitely more marketable than Usman or Magomedov. They could continuously go back to Dublin. They could sell that shit out. Who does Hughes fight? Is Hughes going to rematch? Not rematch, but is he going to fight Alfie Davis? They have some good pieces, but it's hard to sell watching them fight because they just don't have anybody to put them up against that people are like, oh, that's an intriguing fight. Right? Dakota Dacheva, that's kind of her issue. She's supposed to fight Denise Kielholtz. You fucking kidding me? And I think Dacheva is another fighter that we'll probably see in the UFC by maybe 2028. I think she signed for 26 and 27. I think she signed a deal before her last fight. Or after her last fight, I don't recall. But she's trying to make her money with the PFL as much as she can and then hop on over to the UFC. Tyler Betts, appreciate you stopping by, my guy. McNasty saying, I think Topuria will be up in another division at that point and will retire, then Arman is champ by default. The only reason I could see that is if Topuria is chasing Makhachev, and I feel like that's the fight that he really wants, and I feel like that's the fight that Makhachev does not want. Properly, Topuria should be a 45er. He shouldn't be fighting at 55. We know he only went to 55 to chase Makhachev. Makhachev does not want that fight. So at most, Topuria should just chill at 55. I don't know how hard the weight cut is for him to 45, but he has the frame of a 45er. He has the power of a 55er, sure. Definitely not 70, but I know what you mean there. And Tyler Betts in cap, yeah. Absolutely. Oh. McNasty saying Topuria said he wanted to retire by 30. I could see it. The guy is already rich enough, if I'm not mistaken. He's made a lot of money already. And I think he was already kind of rich before getting into the MMA game. So, yeah, that guy has nothing to worry about for money. And very weird that, speaking of retirement, that Ramazan Kuramagomedov hung it up. And he's not even 30 yet. Coming off arguably the biggest win of his career. And now he's retiring? Maybe he wants to jet to the UFC too. But again, that fucking horrible performance he had against Jordan Williams on the Contender Series in 2019, that's hard to get over. Fucking struggling against a guy with diabetes. I don't know if you guys remember Jordan Williams, but goddamn. That guy made it to the UFC, right? Jordan Williams made it to the UFC because I think if I'm not mistaken, he knocked out RoboCop. I gotta fucking double check that. Or is it Josh Frem that knocked out RoboCop? Yeah. So Jordan Williams lost a split to Ramazan Kuramagomedov on the Contender Series in 2019. Then doesn't even have a fight after that, but jumps right into the Contender Series in 2020 and knocks out RoboCop in 2 minutes. And then gets sent to the UFC, loses his first fight against Nasruddin Imavov, gets choked out by Mickey Gall in his second fight, and then gets knocked out by Ian Machado Gary in his third fight, and he hasn't competed in MMA ever since, nor has he been scheduled in MMA ever since. Crazy. Jibhead saying he was rich before he started. Yeah, that's what I keep hearing. I feel like he was talking about that on Aerial Show one time, and then he was talking about, no, I was working construction or some shit. So I feel like he was rich before. I can't say with 100% certainty. McNasty saying PFO is a shit show. Doumbé made a mistake by pulling out that UFC contract. They somehow fumbled Baki too. Yeah. Was it Doumbé pulling out, or was it from what I recall, it wasn't entirely Doombay's doing in terms of pulling out of the UFC contract. I think it was because like MMA was still kind of new in France, and it was hard to match Doumbé up with another fighter because he had such low MMA experience, and the French commission wanted him to be matched up with somebody that was closer in experience. And obviously it's going to be hard to find somebody to match up with a Doumbé considering his crazy kickboxing background, but his low amount of MMA fights. McNasty saying he was supposed to fight on UFC Paris. I think that's wrong. Let me double check that, because I swear they signed him, but then they released him because they couldn't get any of his matchups sanctioned. Let me see here. Doumbé was scheduled to face Darian Weeks at UFC 209 on September 3rd, 2022. However, the fight was cancelled after the French MMA Federation would not sanction the bout per the commission's rules that fighters with less than 10 professional bouts must not have more than a 4-fight differential between them. Later in an interview with Helwani, Doumbé revealed that the MRI scan of his head indicated blood in his brain, which was the other primary reason why the bout was called off. Subsequently, he was released from the UFC contract. Yeah, they matched him up with Darian Weeks, but again, Darian Weeks had how many fights at that time? So at the time, yeah, Darian Weeks only had 6 fights. And Doumbé had... How many fights did Doumbé have? Doumbé had 2. So there's 4 fights. But maybe they're saying 4 or more. Yeah, very unfortunate situation with Doumbé all around. Like, he should have already fought again, right? His last fight was almost 2 years ago. His last fight was May of 2024 when he knocked out Jaleel Willis. That is crazy. And he's not young, right? He's 33. So still close enough to be fighting at a championship level, but you know, he's got some time to make up. They messed him up with Darian Weeks, yeah. Crazy. It would have been nice to see him in the UFC. He's a fun striker. But I don't think he would have had as much success as Pereira, right? Given the division he's in, I think it would have been welterweight, right? Welterweight or middleweight. You know, given the types of guys he'd have to go up with. I have no idea. I have no idea what they are doing. And the Ngannou signing was super weird too. Yeah. I think PFL was just trying to, like even that other kickboxing guy they just signed, they announced it at I think their PFL Europe event. Nobody really knew the guy, but they're just trying to get anybody that is popular in certain areas. Like I think they're doing fine in France and Belgium because of guys like Patrick Habirora and that Boris and Tongana guy. Like they're latching on to those guys and hoping that they're enough to sell. And that sells good tickets for them in Europe, but they can't push tickets for shit in the US. Jibhead saying O'Day versus Alibi. Let's talk it. Sure, let's do it. I think Alibi wins, but man, he really underperformed against Joseph Morales. I don't think O'Day Osborne is good. I think he got lucky with let's see here. I remember there was a fight recently where I was very surprised that he actually won. The Louis Garul fight, he clipped him, got lucky. Steve Erceg fight, he definitely outperformed what a lot of people thought he would. I don't think he's that good. And then Alibi, I think he just kind of, I don't know if it was the pressure or what it was, but he really fell short in that fight. Like, I think he beat some pretty good opponents on the Ultimate Fighter. Well, Roy Bird Echeverria. That's about it. The other guy kind of sucks. And he's a solid fighter. He had some good experience even from his time, fighting over at Niza FC. But I think Alibi walks through Osborne. There is that early finishing threat of Osborne, but outside of that, I don't think he has much to offer here. My guy McNasty saying Alibi sub. Yeah, I could see that. Alibi's only won 1 fight by submission, 4 fights by KO, 4 by decision. So maybe not sub, maybe like a ground and pound or something. Jipit saying I just didn't like his finale. Yeah, for sure. That finale was bad. But this is a very winnable fight for him. And the fact that he's only at minus 150, I think that's a bit of a gift of a line. I do not think Ode Osborne's good. I think he's not good. I can't believe he beat Charles Johnson. Johnson was not locked in, right? I think the version of Johnson we have now would easily walk through Ode Osborne, but he was just not pulling the trigger against Osborne for some reason. Who are his other ones? Jerome Rivera, who kind of fizzled out heavy in the UFC. CJ Vergara, not that great. Zaruk Adeshev kind of boinked him right at the beginning of the fight. Bonked. Definitely not boinked. We're not in the, a different league here. But yeah, Tyson Nam knocked him out. Asuam Mabayev chokes him out. Tefel Filio chokes him out. Ronaldo Rodriguez. Osborne almost got him out of there in the first round, but Rodriguez battles back and beats him. I think I had Rodriguez as a lock of the night play that night, if I remember correctly, too. Clips Garul finishes him and then loses against Steve Erceg. But yeah, Alibi should beat him. Alibi should win. McNasty saying that was so bad. I'm Joseph's number 1 hater, too. Oh, I know. I know the other viewers and commenters probably don't know, but I know you are the biggest Joseph Morales hater. I do think you picked him in his last fight, though, which was a much more favorable fight for him than the Alibi one was pre-fight. You're saying like albino? Don't you retract that message, my guy. We're gonna call Alibi albino from now on. I don't care. I know the message is retracted now, but I saw it. I saw it. Alibi the albino Idris. Stamped. Jibhead saying I am leaning Alibi, but so young in the game. True. But again, Osborne he's just not good. I think Alibi has good enough durability that he could eat a big shot. Alibi's 31 though. He's not a youngster by any means, but even like MMA experience. Like, he fought some tough competition throughout his career. Like, just going through. So, his first 2 opponents, they were making their pro debuts. Then he went 4-2-1, 3-1-1, 9-3, 8-3, 11-6. And that's winning the title and defending it twice for Niza FC. Then he fights 8-0, 13-6, 10-2, and then gets on to the Ultimate Fighter. So he's been fighting some decent level competition throughout his career. It's arguable that Ode Osborne, not as good as some of the guys that he beat, that Alibi beat on the regional scene. McNasty saying Osborne gets broken easily. Tapped 4 times, I'm assuming. I think Alibi will wrestle heavy and then it'll come. Just depends on odds. He's minus 150. Alibi. That's not a bad line at all. And I kind of agree with you. Like, the more that, I said I don't like looking at odds before I do research, but there's a lot of closely, like, not a heavy chalk here. We got, like, over minus 250. There's only 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5 of the 13 fights have odds over minus 250. I like it. That means that there's some good opportunities. But yeah, I'd like to see the odds on the sub prop, because you have to take into consideration the fact that Osborne has been subbed a decent bit, but also the fact that Alibi only has one submission win on his record. So I'm interested to see whether they'll pull that. Like, it kind of reminds me of Billy Elikana against Junior Tafa. I think Elikana only had one submission on his record going into that fight, but Tafa had been submitted twice. And I think the sub prop, I think the sub prop was like plus 180, plus 200 for Elikana. All right, I got about like 3 or 4 minutes. So I'm going to continue to kick it with you guys here. Any other? Let's see some future odds. Oh, Octagon already has their odds out. You know what? Just as a special gift here, I'll quickly skim the odds with you guys. Ronald Paradiser, minus 200, not too bad. David Kozma, minus 160, not too bad. I don't know a whole lot about Whitner, but I know Kozma is usually good against some of these unknown guys. Fedor Duric, minus 135 against Thomas Murdoch. Have to study that, but I kind of lean Duric there. Jakub Podfalski, minus 550, that's crazy. Hafeni Nufuka, minus 325 against Mataj Kuznik. I need to research Kuznik because Nufuka has kind of been more hyped than anything as of late. Fodor, minus 180. Jack McGuire, minus 325. Wow, that's crazy. Yeah, not a lot. McNasty saying Kayla versus Amanda, I am actually looking forward to. Yeah, whenever they announce that again, though, I feel like it's going to be a while, right? Neck surgery will put you out for a while. And she's not young. So, will be interesting where that goes. Movsright Ivloyev, minus 260 against Lerone Murphy. I'm sure there's going to be plenty of people looking to take some Murphy there. And then Joe Pyfer, minus 125 against Israel Adesanya. Good Lord, who would have thought the day would come where Adesanya is an underdog to fucking beat Joe Pyfer? I get it. Durability on Adesanya does not look good as of late. But remember what I talked about earlier in the stream about Marc-Andre Barriault. His chin showed up. He fought much closer than plus, 350 indicated on him. If Adesanya can eat a clean Pyfer shot, play his range over 5 rounds, you gotta favor the former champ. McNasty saying if Izzy survives to round 3, it's all his. Yeah. I think he only needs to survive like 6.5, 7 minutes. And, it could work out well for him. But here's the other thing. Pyfer is the better grappler. Pyfer is more dangerous. Probably getting a submission. So if Pyfer really wants to take the easiest path to victory, maybe he looks to wrestle Adesanya. And he's strong enough that he might be able to get him to the ground and then get to a dominant position. So it doesn't just have to be Pyfer's knockout power. That's something to consider there. Jibet saying, is Joe going to play the kickboxing game with him that long, though? Yeah, see, that exactly what I just talked about. I think we'll see Joe maybe for like a minute and a half, 2 minutes, look to take Adesanya's head off. And if it's not as easy as he was thinking it's going to be, then I think we'll see him start shooting for takedowns, which is a double-edged sword as well, right? If he shoots for takedowns and has to work really hard for it, maybe he can't maintain his cardio well enough to get to those dominant positions that he needs. But if he does, and he can get to a dominant position quickly, maybe he's able to get the finish that way. Ignacy saying, I feel like Pyfer wrestles, he will gas pretty quick if he hasn't gotten the finish. Yeah, exactly. It would be smarter for him to wrestle Izzy, for sure. It will be smarter for him to wrestle Izzy if he can't get the knockout within the first 2 to 2.5 minutes. What the fuck do we know, though, right? He's probably going to be game planning to just strike with Izzy, hoping that he just needs to land that one bomb and conserve his energy for longer rather than looking to wrestle. So, Interesting fight. It's still a full like month and a half away though. Hopefully the fight stays together. That's a puzzle I want to see play out. All right. That's going to be a wrap on the live stream. Appreciate you guys chilling, hanging with the boy, talking some shit. We'll be back Monday for the full card UFC Houston breakdown. Then I'll be back on the Tuesday for this same stream with some more information about the fight so we can talk a little bit more in depth about the UFC Houston fights and then all the other great content, including Cage Warriors 200 as well, which I'll be breaking down for you guys probably on that Thursday of that fight week. Appreciate the love. Appreciate the support. I'll see you guys again on Monday. Peace.